Hello, everyone, and welcome to another IndieX 2020 showcase. Today we have something a little bit different. Instead of showcasing an indie game, we'll be having a masterclass. But before we get to that, and before I introduce our guest today, our speaker, I just wanted to talk a bit about our partner for IndieX 2020, because this masterclass was brought to us mainly because of them and because of their help. And so we are promoting this in partnership with Scale Up Porto. It's a strategy from the municipality of Porto to support the development of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And as part of this strategy, the city of Porto promotes connections between startups and the market. And as all of you know, gaming is a growing market at the time, and there are a lot of business opportunities in this developing market. So we joined and challenged Scala Porto to partner with us and the Portuguese gaming community to foster these connections as part of IndieX 2020. And so basically, this masterclass was initially brought up as a form to support the studios, not only Portuguese but also international, that may want this kind of participation, right? And it's going to be a part of the B2B matchmaking initiative that's going to occur tomorrow, where we will have 26 different studios and 9 publishers who will be looking to make business connections. And all of this is only possible thanks to Scale Up Porto. So Scale Up Porto is inviting you to visit bit.ly/gamingporto to know more about what's going on concerning gaming and also gambling and development initiatives in the city of Porto and its local surroundings. So having talked about that a bit, I think it's high time we started to introduce our guest speaker today, and I'll be showing off in a bit. But basically, today we are going to have the pleasure of having Gwen Foster talking a bit about the process of how to pitch a video game to publishers. And as for those that don't know, Gwen has worked as a senior producer for independent game companies in Southeast Asia. She has also been responsible for organizing IGDA Philippines, the Manila chapter, and has also been involved with Rising Sea, which is a regional game jam, and Pathfindings, a global South initiative. Currently, she specializes in business development, publishing, and production, and is working with Superhot, Inner Slot, Yogscast Games, Shell Games, and Well Told Entertainment. So I think that after that very long intro, I think you all want to get into the masterclass itself, and you want to talk to Gwen. So I think it's time for me to show you and for her to come on. Hey Gwen, how are you?
I'm good.
Oh, nice, awesome.
Sorry for the long introduction. But yeah, so hi, I'm good. I am senior business dev at Robotedia, and we work with a lot of developers. I mostly work for Superhot and then Innerslot that made Among Us. So that's pretty cool. It's been fun. I'm also part of the organizing team of Indie Festa, and then you could essentially just check out the games that are made in the Philippines online in a really cute um like RPG maker environment. But yeah, so for this masterclass, part of my job at Roboteddy is that we do business development, and my specialty this year is pitching. Uh, so yeah, I will go ahead. Feel free to ask questions at any time.
Yes, I will be collecting these questions so we can ask them to Gwen. Thank you very much, Gwen, for being here,
Okay.
and go ahead.
Okay. So just so you know, this is not the only way. But this with you are what's worked for us. Currently, around one, we've secured around 1 million deals US dollars using this method. And yeah, so this is literally me 20 minutes every time I give a talk. The even though wait, oh no, wait, give me a few minutes, a couple of slides, just cause I realized this is streaming on Facebook, and because I'm not allowed to share that. But yeah, so I work with Robot Eddie, and I help with Super Hot. So like doing anything from like, Game Pass deals, Stadia deals. I helped with the Stadia deal launching, and then pitching a couple of their games with Super Hot Presents. And then as was stated earlier, I also do work with IGDA Philippines, like as a board member. So with Robotery, these are a bunch of our clients. Okay, so write down. So preparing your pitch. First of all, like when you start pitching, it's always important to do like the team or your dream team. So it would be good to start reaching out to people who you'd want to work on your game, even if um you don't think like you could afford them. Like if they're interested in your game, like check out how much the rates are, like if they want to work with you. Like those are things that like you should always factor in. That's one of the reasons why you're asking for funding anyway, is to ensure that everybody gets paid fairly. Always remember that you should pay yourself a living wage. Like ideally nobody should make games for free, even if it's like a hobby or something. Like when you're learning, like it's good to like it's okay. But when you want to make a living out of games, like this is important that you should also treat your team fairly. Timeline, so this means like release date, alpha, beta, the different milestones. And then comes from like how much the team would cost. Like so everyone else. Game overview and its core features. So preferably one per slide. I have like a GIF that showcases it so that it's easier to understand. Support needed, whether it's normally developers usually seek for development funding, but there's also a thing called services support. So this is anything from marketing, porting, localization, QA, like things that you feel like a publisher could provide to you. And then one of the first things that I look at, which is a video, like a link to a trailer or a build, like that I could play. Normally, what I do is that I check for the video first, and then if it's like even from then and there, like because I work with Presents, like I know which games already fits us, and then if it's a different sort of game, usually I recommend other publishers. So how to pitch? The next thing is that so this is something that has gone around, like a lot of people have retweeted this. I've made this available and accessible for everybody to use, but please don't treat it as is, because like some of the people that I know within the industry have said like this person has used a template. This is streamed live, but like maybe later we can choose not to live this, or I don't know, like but like I would want to share the deck that we use that more people could have perspective. So I personally prefer doing studio name, like the studio itself that you work with, the company that you built, or the studio that you have, when it was founded, and if you're a first time developer, what kind of games do you want to make, and then the team. So like it would be good to have like person, what is the role in the game that you're making, whether it's arts, programming, and then their Twitter handle or any social media where people could find them. Next is that like so for this one, I would prefer it if it like the whole site was just your key art, which is the art that you usually see on Steam or like on a box cover. If that's not doable, preferably a game logo, short description of the game, but not too much. Like for the game that we were making, which has also like gone viral, we did our pitch is like it's a cooking game without recipes. So essentially, everybody has the freedom to do what they want, but there are like certain standards that people could that defines what a dish is. And then this is feature. So like for example, in the game that we're making, one feature is of course cooking. The other feature is develop. Then another feature would be the marketplace where you could buy the ingredient. And then just break it down for feature. So for example, if your feature is like if you're making like a roguelike game, you could say like combat, and then the bullet points can be like you have 50 weapons, um, you could play it either real time or you could play it strategically or tactically, similar to like Transistor. You could always feel the freedom to just reference other games that have been released. So, for example, in the game that we were making, we literally placed in our deck that it's like Dark Souls like difficulty, or it's like a Dark Souls of video games, of cooking games, just because people always found it hard to like do the recipes with their demo. And then next is like marketing plan. So like when you pitch to, so there are different um, things you could pitch to. One of them is platform. So this is like Xbox, Sony, Nintendo for like Indie World, Stadia, Amazon's Luna. So all this you could pitch this in their essentially platforms, and then if you're gonna be a game that's in their roster, sometimes they would offer money, like, but you could also choose to just like release on their platform. The next that you could fund to, you could send pitches to is games fund. So this is usually I'm lucky to have front seat to this because off the top of my head, it's Kowloon Nights, which funds games from like 500K USD upwards. I think to up to 3 million. Um, don't quote me on that, but like the minimum is 500K upwards. And then the next is per hot percent. So we usually fund like silly niche games from 50K to 150K USD budget. And then, of course, publishers. So the main difference with this is that, of course, like platforms, depending on who you're pitching to, like some of them would have percentage, and then up until recoup, which means that like once they earn back their investment, that's the only time like you start making money. For games funds, like super hot percents, I can say that uh, we essentially give the money, like we give you advice, and we introduce you to certain people that you want. But because for our games fund, like we're not as hands on, so like we take 25% and then 75% on day one goes to the developer. For publishers, this is where some of them like code development, just code sync, like they would be super hands on, like they would have their producer liaising with ideally your producer. um there's they would also like give QA support, marketing support, so all of these things. So that's why it's important that in your marketing plan you define the roles or like your set of expectations. So like for example, conference and trade shows, if you as a developer want to do those things, you should also place those. Or like you say, like you state that, oh, we'd actually want the publisher to showcase the games for us, which could incur costs on your end, and be like part of the budget that they would recoup, or like they would earn back. If whether you're doing it in-house, do you have somebody in mind? Community building, generally what I would say is that you should have your own like Discord. You should hire community managers for yourselves, to build a brand. But there are cases like, for example, a good example would be Devolver and Mediatonic with Fall Guys. Like Oliver is part of Mediatonic, but then of course, like you know, he talks to Devolver about all the plans. They cross tweet, like Fall Guys itself has its own Twitter account, Devolver has its own Twitter account, and then they post like they cross promote. And then PR and marketing. I cannot stress this enough. You should definitely hire somebody, or like asks your publisher who they'll be hiring for Games Fund, we expect you to hire those, and then we would give recommendations. Like for example, Super Presents, we use Evolve, we use Neon Hive, depending on the game. So like and depending on the announcement, like so because like PR and marketing agencies, especially game specific, already have that established relationship, and like they would know what the press would want to write about regarding your game. So I highly encourage it for you folks to do it. So production timeline. Personally, I prefer mine to do every quarter. The key things that you should put here is like your core features, when do you expect them to finish, localization, porting, like for example, if you're porting to something like Stadia, ideally you give yourself at least 3 to 6 months because it's a different platform. The same goes for like porting to Sony and PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. Like you should always like have those like in mind. Especially like, are you doing it? Are you partnering with a porting studio? So these are things like, are you sim shipping? Like, so like 3 months just dedicated to these things. Like these are things that you have to think of early on. When is content complete on PC version? Are you just gonna do PC version first and then port, or are you gonna do them side by side? Like these are things that like you have to consider the bandwidth of your team. And then yeah, so budget. So anything in game development, that's programming, art, production, all your core team that falls under game development. So that's why it's also important to know like how much you need every month. Just because like, you know, if you're pegging for like a 1 year release, if you know your burn rate per month, then you just times 12 that, and you have to give yourself like 3 to 6 months um, allowance, because like it's game development. You could just like it ensures that you don't have to crunch, and like you don't feel the pressure unless you're committed to like something in writing. Then you know, of course, you have to meet that deadline. But like, you know, just talking to publishers and dealing with these things just so that they could allocate budget. And sound design, if you're an indie developer, it would be good to have in-house that you have at all times, but like not a lot of people could afford this. So like, you know, you talk to publishers and stuff like that. Like the rate for a 1 minute song usually is like 300 British pounds to 500 British pounds, and that's per minute, like one looping. So that's something you have to factor in. How many of those loops do you need? So this is some, and which is also separate from design. Like those are people like, are you hiring somebody who could also implement it for you? Are you just like going to purchase a library that you could use and then implement it yourself? These are things that like you should definitely factor in. Localization, on average, like you should budget a minimum of like 20,000 if you're localizing to 12 languages, and if you're releasing is usually the number of languages that you should meet. And then you also have to factor in, included in that is the what we call localization QA. So per platform, you should budget like 4,000 for 2 testers in a game. So I've spoken a bit about PR and marketing. These depend on like the rates, um, and how long you're gonna hire them. So you could hire them like anywhere from months before launch. Like it would be good, and depending on what you need, are they gonna take care of influencer or like streamer marketing? Is it some? And then in that regard, you know, different streamers have different rates. Like, are you just gonna do a press outreach and then, you know, like comms and strategy plan? So like these are things that you have to factor in. Like, is it a one-time fee or is it like a retainer? And then porting, This highly depends on like how fast you want it, and of course, having things fast means that they're gonna be expensive, especially if you're hiring somebody good. But like if you plan this like well enough, then you could, and you look around, then you could probably find somebody who has a reasonable rate. It's always good to just have 4 to 5 people in your roster that you could compare rates and what fits in your budget. If this is something that your publisher already has, like, then that adds to their recoup amount or like their investment into your game. And then this is something that I appreciate, is that like if you pitch to me like how much of the work have you actually put into your vertical slice, and like, and these are things that it doesn't necessarily have to be the money, but always remember that your time and skill set is valued. So like you should check, like, for example, when me and my teammates, there were 3 of us, like when we were working, we valued our rates at like, because we're also based in the Philippines, which means like livelihood cost is lower. We made a demo for like 2 whole months, so like, and we priced ourselves at like $1,000 each. So our investment was actually 6,000 US dollars. But that was just us. Like that is the value we assigned the work that we did. And then because we wanted to bring on board a game designer, we wanted to bring on board another producer, and then we asked them the rates. So that's when the burn rate went up. And then of course, like if you have friends who have money and who are willing to give money to you, then that's also like another line. And then next is like the publisher or the platform that you're talking into. This could change, like for example, if you're like porting to VR, you pitch to Oculus, but then they you could also pitch to publishers, so that you could break down, like if for example that you need 100k USD, then you could say like 50k comes from Oculus and then 50k comes from a publisher, and then like you could see from that. So these are things that like you have to strategically plan so that it makes sense for who you're pitching to. And then just in general, like, so that if somebody sees your pitch, I prefer to just have like questions answered. So some of the questions that I personally prefer, like when I am looking at games as Super Hot presents, is that why are you making this? Like, is there an innovation? Is there something that you want to change in the industry? What are your plans after release? Do you want to port? Like, because you could ask for funds specifically for just a specific. Then, what do you think are the general expectations for this title? So, for the game that we were making, which is the cooking game, we saw that there were not a lot of cooking games in the market, and then we wanted to give like a fresh take that that's casual, that's easily accessible for even non-hardcore gamers, and both hardcore and casual players could be. And then this one is based off the idea at Xbox template that I've always found it useful. Just put game title, put your game's logo here, put who you're pitching to here, the name of the publisher, your studio name, your target release date, the platforms that you want to release to, what genre, players, summary of the game, then links if you have like store pages already established. And then in this like big white spot, like you put in all the screenshots, the GIFs that you have, like the best ones. So that the purpose of this is that, for example, for Super Hot Sense, like if we started, pitching to like Stadia or like Nintendo Switch for Super Hot, we also include Super Hot Presents games. So that I usually just pull this slide and then include that, and then the more about the game. And then the moment the platform is interested in the games that are under the Super Hot Presents roster, then we introduce them to the developer themselves, and then they can take it from there. So after that, I would like to say, the studio's game experience. What are your strengths? Is this your first time shipping a game as a team? Have you previously shipped games before? How many players did you have? Like, um, you could also list down your game awards. You could dedicate a separate slide for previous games, units sold, at what price point. Like, these are very important things that you could put in. And then looking for development funding, store support, marketing support. Please don't use the line "a partner who understands your game" anymore. So many people have begged me to please stop using that, because this was a line that has effectively given us funding, but they also know that it came from us. And then, yeah. Okay, then thank you. Contact and email. And then another thing, when you're pitching to, it would just be good to have all your information in a document. So this includes your game trailer, whether it's an unlisted video in YouTube, your pitch deck, which is what I just showed you, market comparison report. This is list down 10 similar game next to yours, how they're priced, how they perform. Ideally, not all games are the top 1% of games that succeed. You also have the average of games. How to play the game. Sometimes I just get stuck. I don't know what to do. I email developers and ask them for help, but knowing what issues may arise would also be good. And then it would also just make it easier for me to play through the game. Budget spreadsheet. Ideally, there are two sheets, like the overview of where you're spending the money and then the month to month. So just so that publishers appreciate this, because they know your burn rate and where you're spending the money. And then game design document. So this is ideally it's not 100 pages. Something from 5 to 10 pages would be good. All of the features, your plans, just put it there in a visual format. That would be super cool to have. And then this is an email template that I have used a lot of times. Hi to whoever you're emailing to, to your company, previous games. We have a game we'd like to pitch to you. Give us the game, more information on the game, budget, plus what you need specifically, additional information, and then let us know if you have any questions. So this is actually an email that we sent out. So we have a game called Patay na Ina Mo. We're a chicken club. We're a 3-woman team based in the Philippines. We keep the Manteco, and then the link to the Twitter. Then we are asking for this amount of money to fund our development and to pay services for porting, PR, and marketing. So we think you're a good fit since the game is silly, it's experimental, it's fun. And then I'm sending you all the information that you need. And then I brought the Google Drive. So pitch deck, game build or Steam keys, gameplay video, design outline, budget breakdown, how to play the game. And then let us know if you have any questions. And then this is important, just in case if I'm busy, because I also I just placed for more information. You could also contact Trina, and then I CC her in the email. So just because if I'm busy, at least Trina could respond to people. So yeah. Oh no, it's still here. Wait. Let me. There. So how to pitch based on my personal experience. Uh, when somebody tells you no, these are the things that go inside their head. Like, game is nice, but it's not a fit. There are certain publishers that look for certain games. For example, Modern Wolf, like they're very focused on strategy games. Um, would the developer want some feedback? Because like some developers don't want the feedback, so this is something that I normally ask developers. If I decide to pass on them, do they want advice? So like when I have time, like I offer them, whether 30-minute to a 1 hour call just to go through their deck and give them feedback. The budget is not within our range, so if it's a game that's 200K USD above, we don't we're not gonna fund it. Like there's no way that we would, because the ceiling of our budget is 150K. And for a games fund like Super Hot Percents, some games would actually just benefit more than going for a publisher, just because like they need certain services that we cannot offer. And then last is that like I just don't like the game. So like usually when I don't like the game, I just say that like it's a pass. I'm sorry, it doesn't fit Super Hot Percents. Thank you. And when I say yes, like it's usually pretty fast. What I do is that I ask people at Super Hot, the ones who are approving the budget, if they like the game. Um, what can we do? What should we do? Should I prep the contract? Coordinate with legal and finance, which takes a few days. Uh, but then like we just say like, okay, yes, let's fund it. So unsolicited advice, post on social media, especially like if you're not signed. I looked through hashtag pitch a game recently, and then hashtag screenshot Saturday. Check the publishers or games fund's website to see what type of games that they fund, because sometimes it's just not a fit. List down the games similar to yours and check who their publishers are. So this is where the market, like it's more for the devs actually, like for you people. um, you can send me an email or DM me. I think like for this week, like I have no time to respond to people, but like in a couple of weeks, I will get your Twitch deck review from me. Always be kind to whoever you talk to, because we also talk, like the games fun and the game. If there was, I've had this experience that somebody was like super rude to me just because like they they were surprised that a woman was handling the pitch decks for Super Sense and thought that like a man would talk to them. Like I thought that. And yeah, so like remember to send your pitch at any time of the year. Uh, it's your There's nothing you get to lose. Like if they really like your game, and then they're just like all filled up, they would contact you and remind you. So it's good to establish that relationship. And then always remember, like I know a lot of the people attending this master class, like it's very important. Diversity is very important. Like we should always ensure that everybody has opportunities to to everything. And yeah, so like for my end, like Rising Sea and then Chicken Club, like these are all led by women, like within the region. And then like our studio is mostly women. And then yeah, so that is how to pitch.
Thank you very much, Gwen. That was an awesome presentation, and I'm glad to see that we actually have some pretty cool questions in chat. And if it's okay with you,
Okay.
then I'm going to put them on to you and see if we have any concluding answers. So, normally, do you think it's common to send a pitch entirely through email, or is it more common
Yeah,
to send an email to prepare first a meeting or a call?
I think it's good to send it by email. Uh, like at Super Hot Presents, we've actually signed a game where we didn't take any meeting. So like they had all the information in the pitch deck, and we just responded like, yeah, let's do this. So they were assigned like after like a week after that. So it's like the email itself, like the email template that I just showed you, like that would be good to just send.
Okay, good, good. Do you think that you should ask for feedback about anything, like both your pitch deck or your game after pitching someone?
Well, what do you mean specifically?
So, when you're pitching someone on your game and showing them your game or your pitch deck, do you think that afterwards, if they refuse, or do you think it's okay to ask for feedback to improve?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
It depends highly on the availability of the publisher, though. Like because, for example, I think I don't like Callum Underwood, who is my coworker at Robot Daddy. He gets like 100 pitches, so he wouldn't have
Yeah.
time for feedback. Like he does make time, so it depends on who you're pitching to, and like so it's always just good to like ask.
Mm-hmm. So, is it okay in a pitch to submit several investment tiers to a publisher? So, for example, have one tier that is only related to help fund development, or maybe a tier that helps not only with development but also, as you mentioned before, marketing, PR, localization, and QA. Is it normal for people to present
Yeah.
different investment tiers in the same pitch?
Not in the same pitch. I would encourage that you have like a deck for games fund for platforms, and then like for example, if you're pitching to a platform, it just makes sense to ask them for money to pitch to their platform, which is like a separate amount than the rest. And then like for yeah,
Okay, good.
so so it's good to just like have different slides for different people.
Mm-hmm. Let me check if we have some more. Oh, okay. Do you have because I know you also do some things related to production as well. Do you have some advice in terms of production for devs? Like, what do you see devs mostly missing in terms of like production?
Do you mean the missing in production?
Like, what are some common pitfalls you see that devs don't they don't they are not prepared in terms of like when you show the budgets and the main production lines. So what are some common pitfalls you see for those types of pitch and presentations?
I think like so production wise, I always call like the West or Western developers usually call this like design pillars. So so for example in the cooking game, like of course like the social media aspect of it, the the cooking game, and then the ingredients or like the marketplace. So those three are our core features, and then it's always just good to have like these is the minimum viable to make the core of the game, and then these are things that are nice to have. Another thing is that not a lot of game developers give enough time for polish. So what I mean by polish is that not zero bug, but like the polish is all those little details that like you see, like for example like in job simulator, if you photocopy your head, the brain comes out like so like those things that are very memorable to the players but
Mm-hmm.
are just things that make the game more fun, like not enough not enough developers do that, so like that would be good to have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Do you think it's important to have a game design document even if you're pitching at a really early stage in development?
I think like in game design document, like depending on the game that you're pitching, like for example, if you're pitching a roguelike or like a strategy game, publishers would always ask you like how deep is it, or like is it a light game um, that you could you could play and pick up. So like that's it depends on the genre of the game that you're making, and like ensuring that expectations are manageable. So like you could say that this is a 1 hour game. like as if you're a narrative game, like the whole game could be like played through for under 1 hour, or if it's like if you're gunning uh for example like mini metro, which I really like it's a game that you could play every 20 minutes, but like for you to finish the whole game, like it would take like 4 to 6 hours. Like managing people's expectations is important, so that is where you should design the that's how you should design the what you call this, the game design document for that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from Madi Sadri, and he asks, which type of entity is better to negotiate with a publisher or investor? Should you have a registered company when you're going to try to pitch to an inventor or a publisher, or is it possible to just have make a deal without having any kind of formal company structure? Let's say.
If the question is specifically towards investment, uh, then it's a really different approach to it. Uh, the company structure, yeah, it depends who you're pitching to. Like publishers don't care so much about it, honestly. Like just because like you're a team that has to develop the game. Uh, uh, for investment, that's an entirely different thing. Because like that means like reviews and stuff. Uh, hmm, and that's a separate structure because that's where it's important, because like you need to have like a certain group of people to answer to your investors. So like they would generally look for ROI, EBITDA, things that they ask, like how much shares of the company, who is the one that's responsible for compliance. So when you're pitching to an investor, the hierarchy is super important because like these are the people who would be accountable to your investors. In terms of publishers, like publishers in general, they just want you to make the game and support you as best as you could, as best as they can. So that's why I say like they're two different things. I'm not as familiar with the investment side of things, but it usually like involves like valuation of your IP, how much is your projected, like they would also ask for like monetization, maintenance, like and this is where either DLCs come in, but usually like publishers, like they're generally uh they just like say yes to like premium games.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay, thank you
it's
very
it.
much.
Publishers are project investment, and then investors are usually company and things, if that makes sense.
How often do you see solo devs get funding? Do you see there's any bias towards a solo dev, or do publishers prefer teams, or is it just based on the, let's say, the quality of the information and the pitch presented?
Um, Super hot percent. I am counting now. So like we have, I won't say the names, but there's one game that's like two developers. There's one that's three. There's one. He's a solo developer that's supported by a lot of contractors, but it's just one dev making the game, full time. There's another one. There was five of them, and then we have, so like we actually like at Super Hot Percents we actually do have like the smaller team sizes. A lot, like when you go to a publisher, like for example or Raw Fury or CodeSync, like you, because they do code development, like they will build a team surrounding you. uh so in those cases, like you should also like include in the pitch, there's one of the games that I think is was signed by with Raw Fury, where the dev had a really great core concept of the game, but the art he wanted the person wanted the art to be more beautiful or more in tune with the game. So when they got signed, they contracted other artists, which these are things essentially that money can't buy. That is something that developers should keep in mind, that this is why you're funding. But of course, like the core gameplay or the core game experience should be there.
Okay, yeah. So basically, if you're a solo dev, you should look not only to publishers that have a history of working with solo devs, but also make sure that your pitch is focused on what do you need if you need
Yeah,
like other members of team and how they can complement your vision in ways that you're
yeah,
lacking. So basically, it's that. Yeah, exactly. Okay,
yes.
good. Pedro Barroso is asking if it's common, like imagine your pitch is refused on a first approach to a
Mm-hmm.
publisher or something, but the feedback that is given to you is not a plainly negative one, right? So it's more like
Mm-hmm.
at this stage we are not interested or it's still too rough in terms of planning. Do you advise these people to improve the game and then try to reach to the same publishers again?
I think it doesn't hurt. Like you should just keep trying because it is for you to lose. Like a lot of developers feel that unless they said like it's not a fit. Once they say it's not a fit or will pass on this, then that's a no. Like that
Mhm.
that's how publishers or games funds usually say no. But then they said that like for example Kowloon Knights, like which is a games fund, they would say something like, and this is purely like theoretical, or like even like super opposites. Like we'll pass on this, but please send us a build
Okay.
later, like when it's pre-alpha. Then you should just totally do it. Like even if it's a games fund that tells you that um we're we'll pass on this, and then like ask for feedback, like as somebody asked earlier, ask for feedback of what can be improved, like, and then just send the new build, like once you've improved it, just send it back, because then maybe they have a change of heart, like, or they see it in a new light, or like the improvements that you do would actually increase your chances. Just keep trying, like, until you say like no,
Yeah.
until you hear like no, then that's the time that you should. But if they say pass, like, but for me, actually, when I say pass, that's normally a no for me. So it just because super hard looking for a very specific set of games.
Yeah. So you have to read the room, and if you feel like there's the it wasn't the reception was not like really negative and it was clear that
Yeah,
they have no chance, then of course try again. So
yeah.
that's basically good advice. Okay, let me see if we have any more questions. Okay, Virgilio Cortez is asking if it's normal that publishers consider the marketing cost to be a burden that they will carry, or if they will contribute heavily to it. How often does a publisher invest on marketing, or asks to be in charge of marketing for the game?
It that like for me, a publisher should help like market the game. Like what, like the most basic is PR. Like they should like send a PR of your game when it's released, because publishers also are part of the decision of when you should release your game. So the most basic that they should support is public PR. Like they should hire. I work with some publishers where they hire a PR agency to help with the games. This is something that as developers, like, you should ask for, because it should be shouldered by the publisher. I mean, that's why they're publishing. Essentially, like, treat it as like book launch, where, like, of course, when there's launching a book, like, there's placement and stuff like that. But it depends on the marketing that you would request. There are cases where if you're working with a platform, like, they do their own PR, they release on their sites and stuff like that. But as a developer, you should not depend on that alone. Like you should communicate with the platform and your publishers and also do your own. So whether that's Reddit publishing, and these are things that fall on your hands. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the community building, like I would advise, is that you also do it yourself because essentially you're building a community for your studio, and like publishers and platforms just do project investment. So you are essentially helping build the brand of your studio. And that's why I would suggest that yes, they will do their own marketing. Like, for example, Devolver as a brand, a lot of people already know about it. Like generally a lot of the game, like they work with a lot of studios, but like when it's a Devolver game. But then at the same time, like you should also do your own marketing, similar to how Fall Guys has done it, and they've actually done it really well. If that makes sense, like they should do marketing, but you should also do your own marketing.
Yeah,
Like it will just benefit you in the long run.
exactly. João Miguel Correia is asking if there's any way that we can share the templates with the audience. I think we can do that afterwards, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will send the link. Uh, so my drive that you could just copy
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
and build from them. Like ideally, don't
Yeah. Don't
take it
copy.
as is. Like yeah, like don't like use it as a framework, but don't, because a lot of people they just fill it out and then they send it as is. So people
Yeah.
already know that those have used my template. Because like this is like my work, my part of my actual work every day. Uh, the decks that I have built out, like once they're released, the games are released, I'll talk to the devs to see if they can share the decks that we've helped them build. But like you would see that they're very different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that is ideally how it should be.
Okay. We have a question from Madi Sadri again, but I think this one I can actually answer myself, and I can just check on you if my guess is correct. So he's asking if how important it is, right, for publishers and investors that a game has replay value. For example, is there any chance for finding a publisher for a linear narrative game? I think you already answered this in your call. Like when you're looking for a publisher or an investor, you
Yeah.
should look for the things that they usually publish or invest. And if sometimes they outright
Yeah.
state in their website like we pride ourselves on this or this or this or this. So you can see that there are publishers that already want to have a focus on narrative and linear gameplay and maybe shorter games and not only like just multiplayer or monetizable or repeatable games. So I think that's
Yeah.
kind of your own homework to do and to look for people that you know that
I
you'll
would
fit with.
suggest like Fellow Traveler. Like they have a strong focus on narrative games. They're based in Australia, and then another one would be if it's like a wholesome game. Uh, that's very pleasant and very cutesy, makes you feel good. Then White Thorn Games is also this is how like just because like when I review Super Hot Presents is like very weird, niche, strong, creative. We actually have one game which is released, Frog Detective 2. And then for Frog Detective 3 down the line, it has no replay value. But we published it because like, it's a frog working as a detective in an anthropomorphic island, which is like when I say it like this, it's very weird.
Yeah.
Like so it fits Super Hot Presents. But yeah, like you should definitely uh check the publishers out. That's why it's also important to do the market comparison for yourselves, like what are the three games that are closest to your games, and check who the publishers are, because those are the ones that have a higher chance at publishing your game.
Okay, I think we have time for one final question. So we have one right here, and Diogo Ferreira is asking, what's the best way to find publishers? Just Google it. So basically, I think he's asking if there is any database or any resource list that you could share with us that has maybe a database of some publishers, or if it's just a matter of Googling and finding them and just looking for specifically some publishers.
The publishers I personally like. and like I would endorse too. I have them because like I am, and actually like for everybody who's here, I'm sorry for like hijacking this. Like I organized an event called Pathfindings, and then there's a meet to match where you could also meet publishers. So like the list of publishers that I personally really like are on the website, and then you could check them out. Like they're the ones whose deals like I appreciate. So like Code Sync is one, Modern Wolf, Raw Fury, Humble Games,
Okay, I think I'll try to
Thunder.
share it.
They have bigger budget.
Okay, good.
And then Whitethorn Games is there. Oh, I forgot to put Fellow Travelers logo, so I will put that. But yeah, like those are whose deals I prefer. The meet to match, like you could also see like the people involved there. So yeah, like Devolver Digital is a good one. Um, so yeah.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, Gwen. It was amazing to have you here. Thanks for accepting our invitation and to sharing your knowledge with us. It was awesome. And for everyone in the chat, don't forget that also we have another talk today about game design's do's and don'ts with Rami Ismail. And we'll, of course, be streaming today later at night at 8 and 22 p.m. But once again, Gwen, thank you very much for acquiescing to our request. You're amazing and you helped us a lot, give us a lot of knowledge. And I hope that we can keep talking about games and making games better. Thank you very much. See you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.